Welcome to another episode of Buckle Up with Simon and Brian, an ultra running conversation. Simon, you're still in California, it looks like.
Yeah, it is exciting time right now. Nora and I are finally taking some time off, and we're flying to Europe in a couple of days. We're gonna do Tour du Mont Blanc, self-supported, and then a few days later, I'm gonna be doing Tour des Géants in the Italian Alps. So 200-mile, 80,000 feet of gain. We had some episode. Here's the beginning of Buckle Up where we talked about that a little bit. So this is this is the race right now. Like this is the race I've been training for the longest time and very excited and very nervous about it. I don't know how my knees will hold, but how about yourself, man? How are your knees?
I'm doing well. I'm recovering well. Getting back into training. I just did an interval workout today, and my Achilles feels fine, so that's good news. I'm gonna push on. I was on the fence of either doing Moab 240 or not. After Leadville,
Oh,
my Achilles blew up pretty bad, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to put that much more stress on it. But today solidified my run today solidified the fact that I feel like it's 100%, shouldn't be an issue. And so I'm going to go ahead and start making the plans to go to Moab and do the 240 in 6 weeks.
okay, 6 weeks. Yeah, you. To me, that sounds like you have sometimes. It has it been a recurring issue for you, the Achilles flaring up like that?
No, I very few and far between, and very subtle, if anything, just annoying more than anything. And it like exploded on Hope Pass, and I don't know what I did to it to make it explode or get so angry. But I was
Yeah.
actually concerned that I was actually going to do damage, and I thought about we talk about it in this episode actually with Ryan that we'll get to in a second here. But I did have some concerns that I might be doing some permanent damage, but none was had. I'm running fine now. Did some intervals today.
Yeah, it really goes to show, and I'm glad you're doing better, and I hope you have a full recovery very quickly, um, because that can drag, and it is worrisome. You can snap your Achilles, and then you need surgery, and then you're out of the picture for quite some time. So it's good to be careful, but yeah, you're right. We had Ryan today, and you'll introduce him more properly. But I think it really goes to show that no matter how experienced you are, a race like Leadville is never easy. A race like Leadville, you'll always face some challenges, and anyone crossing that finish line has had to reflect and convince themselves to keep moving forward. And that was part of the discussion today that we had with Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan McAfee. He's a longtime friend of mine. Gosh, I've known Ryan more than a decade. I think we've been running for about a decade. We have a mutual friend, one of his mutual friends that crewed for him all summer at the Leadman Challenge, all 5 races in Leadville. Moved next door to me probably 14, 15 years ago, and then that's how we connected. So we're all friends and tight. Um, Ryan's a great guy. Super busy like the rest of us. He's got a big family. He's got the full time job and a business that he's trying to run. Just all over the place. But he brings just a really positive attitude to everything he does. It's a really great conversation. I'm really proud of Ryan for sticking it out in Leadman. He's had some challenges in the past with the Leadville 100 specifically and Leadman. And this year he pulled it off, came out clean, and I'm really impressed by his performance, and I think he's impressed by his performance as well.
Yeah, and super happy for him, super proud of him. Although I have zero, he finished not thanks to me. That has nothing to do with me. But the first time I met Ryan, and the first time I heard about Ryan was from you. You had run Bighorn together. It was muddy. It was gross, and kind of hearing the tales of that and being really impressed by Bighorn and your resilience, both of you. And then we met at Ure 100 mile, which I still consider to be the hardest race I've ever done. And I remember this guy, he looks in pretty good shape. He looks the par, and he's a strong runner. And he was describing how he had dropped Ure maybe the year before. I can't remember when, around mile 80, I think, and describing how sleepwalking, where the cliff was, just not feeling good. And that really got me thinking, wow, if a guy like that struggled so much, I'm I'm in trouble. I really felt like the meme, the Simpson meme, like he's in the Ralph is in the bus and is like chuckling, I'm in trouble. I felt like that talking to Ryan. And and you're right, he's someone who's faced adversity, and I think that's something that I very much respect, is facing adversity and having the courage to come back and fight for it. And I think that really resonate within the discussion that we had, which was a great chat. And of course, like you said, I mean, Ryan is super charismatic. Ryan is super fun, smiling. He makes you feel good. It makes you smile. He makes you laugh. A great guy altogether.
Yeah, one last story before we get to the episode is that Ryan and I wanted to go on the Four Pass Loop up here in Aspen. It circumnavigates the Maroon Bells Wilderness. I think it's like 28 miles and 10,000 vertical. I'm sure somebody in the comments could correct me if I'm wrong. But that's roughly what it is. And we wanted to do it for his birthday, so we did it together, and it was one of the best days on the trail that I've had. We had a great super day. The weather was just perfect. We joked and had fun almost the whole time, and then time just flew by really quickly. Um, so I cherish those moments running with friends like that. So without further ado, here's our episode with Ryan McAfee. Enjoy. Hey Ryan, thanks for coming on the show this evening. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me.
2024 Leadman. It was a big year for you. You've been here before. I believe you've done 4 attempts with 3 finishes at Leadman prior to this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Four attempts, 3 finishes. So yeah,
So this is your fourth one, or is this your fifth?
yeah. This is my fourth one. Yep.
Oh, this is
So
included in there.
third
Okay,
finish, fourth attempt. Yeah.
cool. And for those listeners that don't know, Leadman is a summer series of 5 or 6 races. You have an optional, but we'll talk about that one. But it starts out, this year was a little different compared to other years that Simon and I have both done it, and yourself has done it. They moved the marathon and heavy half. The marathon is the first race in the series. It's a requirement. But they moved it a week later, which usually used to be on Father's Day weekend, and it was a week later this year. I think it was like the last week of June, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Um, and then the first week of July, the subsequent following Saturday was the Silver Rush weekend. That's the 50-mile run on Saturday, the 50-mile bike on Sunday. I believe you elected all the years you've elected to bike, haven't you?
Yeah. I've always chosen the bike.
Yep.
I'll stand by that. I think it's definitely the easier way to go.
Yeah, I go the other way. I choose the run, and Simon says you're a pussy if you don't do both. So we'll just we'll just move on. Um, and then you got the Silver Rush 50 weekend. You do get to pick one of those two. Then you got a decent gap, maybe 5 or 6 weeks until the 100 mountain bike race, which is the second week of August. This year
Hmm.
was August 10th. 100 miles up to
Yeah.
100-mile bike race up to Columbine Mine and back down to town. 100 on Saturday. A 10K run on Sunday. It's not optional. It's a requirement. And then 6 days later, on Saturday the 17th, you got to toe the line and finish all 100 miles of running up over Hope Pass to Winfield and back in 30 hours. Some of the super quick rules that you have to start each race in order to move on to the next race. And you have to be successful in each race in order to be considered in the series still as a lead man or a lead challenge athlete at this point. They did change the name a couple years ago. So that was the deal, right? And how did you go this summer? How did it go? Let's start with the first one.
Yeah, it went really well for me compared to the last time I did it. But Yeah, I mean, like you were saying with the format now, the marathon's closer to the 50 mile. I actually thought that it worked out well for me. The marathon went. I had a good day. I really enjoy the Leadville Marathon just in general. I like that. You kind of hit Mosquito Pass at the halfway point, and then on the way back, you're just kind of there's like one more big climb, and then you're descending back into town, so you can kind of just let it all go, and you know don't have to worry about any more climbing after that point. But I had a good day there. I actually PR'd, I think by 30 minutes or so, and I was really happy with my mental. I was pretty focused and present, and was able to not have a pity party or anything like that, and really stick with it, which I think like can happen out there. So, and it was a beautiful day too. It was not too hot, and so it was good. And
Nice. So the reason they moved the race a week later is because they were trying to not have to shovel Mosquito Pass. Was there still visible snow, or was it an issue, or was
no,
it not
this
an
year,
issue this year?
yeah, I know that was not an issue this year, but I remember in maybe it was in 22 there was definitely snow on it, and I think in 2019 I did it. They actually shoveled. No, actually 2019 I think there was so much snow they actually changed the course altogether. I think in
Mm-hmm.
2019, maybe I did in 2016. It was they shoveled it like the day before. So yeah, it was still wet. There was still water running down it, but there was, if I can remember correctly, I don't think there was any snow up there. So I think it's probably a good move on their part to move it back, especially with a heavy snowfall this year. So
Yeah,
worked out.
we did have a late snowfall in Colorado in the high country.
Mm-hmm.
April, a pretty good April dumping. All right, let's move on to the 50 bike Silver Rush weekend. Again, you elected to do the bike. Biking's your thing, right? I mean, within
Well,
reason.
I wouldn't say. I mean, I feel confident on a bike. I feel confident riding a bike. Um, I rode as a kid, um, and I feel confident and technical trained riding a mountain bike. I wouldn't say I train that much on a mountain bike. I trained more this year than I think I've ever trained before on a mountain bike, and I definitely had some loftier goals as far as the biking was going this year. My kids are on a high school mountain bike team, so I was riding way more with them. So I was just getting way more riding in just in general. And I went there with a goal. I was trying to get, I think it was the Purple Corral, which is sub 530, maybe if I'm not mistaken. So I was chasing after that, and the bike's always like the biggest thing about the biking versus the running is the mechanical slash crashing factor. It adds like a whole different thing that you can be out of a race very quick, just by having a bad day. Having a mechanical and, you break a wheel or something like that, or, you know, bend your derailleur hanger or something like that, and you're out. So I think that's a little added stress, like that, you might be just stuck out there and not finishing because of something out of your hands. But yeah, I had the, of course, you always have the start, and the first year I did it, I learned my lesson. The first year I ever did, I actually brought my bike to the bottom of the hill and put it in like in the front. I was like, okay, I'm gonna put my bike right here, and I was like, I'm gonna go use the bathroom or whatever I was gonna do. And then I came back about 20 minutes later, and a few hundred people had then filled that area and were standing there. And I was like, I've lost my bike. I don't know where my bike is in this big crowd of people. So, you know, over the years, I like one year I actually had a guy. I was like had him stand next to my bike. I just kept yelling his name as I came through the crowd. But yeah. So I've learned a couple lessons. Know where your bike is. I had a buddy racing also, so it's kind of fun to have someone else there. But yeah, it was a good race. Things were working well. I was like really working on my nutrition in that race, which is different. Being on a bike and trying to eat and drink is way different than running. But all that stuff kind of was like working out for me. And then I got to the final climb. I don't know what that climb is on top of the road there. And I know it's just one big descent back into town. And I said to myself, we're looking really good. I'm going to be in that Purple Corral. I'm going to get this PR and everything's going to be great. But I was like, I'm going to take a few deep breaths before this descent. to like not go into it too excited. And then probably after the second set of descending, I don't know if you guys remember, there's like 2 climbs right before you get that road on the way out where everyone starts walking. I was on the second set, and it's like there's always water running down it. And it's like loose rock, and I was hauling, and I saw a guy on the side to the left who's pulled off the trail. And I kind of looked at him. There was a guy on my right, and I saw the line I was headed for, and I was like, man, this is a really bad line. I was like, but I'm gonna make this work. And I hit a rock, like, and I was like, I'm gonna get a bunch of air off this rock, and it's gonna look cool, and everything's gonna work out great. And I hit the rock, and it fucked me. So I was like, bars down in the air, and I was like, I can save this. I'm pretty sure I can save this. And then I was like all like the water running, and so I couldn't really see what I was going into. But I was like, this is fine. I can make this work. And then I hit that water, and I immediately ejected over the bars at going probably 30 miles an hour. And it was one of those things like in the air where I was just like, oh man, this is like a bad situation. But I got banged up really good. And kind of the guy next to me was like yelling and swearing. And he's like, holy, I can't believe, are you okay? And I kind of popped up. I was like, yeah, I'll shake it off. And I got on the bike, and I was like, I'm definitely bleeding here, and I'm bleeding there, and this hurts. And I'm like, just stay focused. And I kind of like was like, I'm having a hard time holding the bars. So I was like, I better back off, a lot just to make sure I can get to the finish, and then and assess what actually was happening. But yeah, I rode the whole rest of the way, and missed my goal by about, I think, 4 minutes. And I ended up, I think it was the week before the Leadville 100 was the first time I could get out of bed and actually sit up, because my ribs were so bruised for that whole month. I had to like do the roll to one side and then like push yourself up to get out of bed type thing. But I came down and, all cut, road rash down one whole side, and, scratched my bike, which was a bummer. But it's always a bummer. But yeah,
But
I
you're alive.
I survived. I had some war wounds coming covered in blood, so it's always good.
That is like a wet wash, and it's like just got bowling balls in it. It's just got like you splash through it like all the way down for like 8 miles. It seems like, and you can't even imagine that you came up it. It doesn't seem like it's even the same course that you came up.
Yeah,
it's funny. Yeah,
I was gonna say it's one of those things like the faster you go, like the more stable and better it is, until it's not. It seems like something goes wrong. You're like, I'm going really fast in an awful place.
I mean, mountain biking for me, that you're totally right. You have a risk of catastrophic failure, and a mechanical it really sucks. Can definitely kill your race, but a crash can happen, and the better you are, the less frequent those crash. But you're also going so much faster. You say you were going 30 miles an hour. That's a good speed. If you're bumping in the rock wrong, you're gonna break something. So, I mean, I'm glad you're okay, or you're better now. It sounds.
Yeah. We're all okay. Yeah, it all builds up over time.
Yeah.
So. Well, I feel like the pussy here, because you guys both must be riding super hard. You guys crash all the time and hurt yourselves, and you gotta like do certain techniques to get out of bed. I just never crash, but maybe I'm not riding hard enough. Maybe that's the deal.
That's not even true, Brian. Weren't you hurt on the first time you did the mountain biking 100? Didn't you break your finger or something?
I thought I broke it, but it wasn't actually broken.
You were being kind of a pussy about it. Okay, got it.
Maybe.
Yeah. As long as you shake it off, I mean, you don't complain too much about it, you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, not to brag, but the segment Ryan is describing, I actually was running downhill with my bike on that segment because I didn't want to crash. So I know exactly where he means. And I was like, you know what? I know I can finish even if I'm not riding this. So let's not ride this right now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I want to just stay here for a minute more about the Silver Rush weekend, because back in the day, the bike used to be on Saturday and the run was on Sunday, and that actually worked, and it fared really well for Leadman participants, because if you did have a mechanical on Saturday, more than likely you could still jump in on Sunday and get the run done. But now if you commit to the bike on Sunday and you have a mechanical, you're pretty much SOL. You just got to deal with it and move on outside of the series, but continue on the process of doing each race. it makes more sense to do the bike. I get it. They're trying to get the Denver folk back to Denver in a timely manner, and if they run on Sunday, they're there till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and all those things. Um, so
Yeah,
it makes more
recovery
sense, and I get it.
wise too. It just, I mean, obviously you just recover so much easier from a 50-mile bike as long as you don't crash. Like I was pretty well banged up, but I do remember like it was like I think one year 2022 maybe, and I was just like, it's just a 50-mile bike, no big deal tomorrow. And I was like getting ready to go to the start, and then the guy that was with me was like, "Well, how happens if you have a mechanical?" And I was like, "What? Why would you say that?" Like, why would you think that? And that's all I could think of the whole time was like, "Do not have a mechanical. Do not have a mechanical." So
Yeah, I was amazed by how many people I passed at Silver Rush, like in these last 7 miles that had the broken chain, and were just walking with their bike. And I was like, wow, that's what do you do? I really don't know what you do other than kind of walk with your bike or kind of like push and like ride it. It's really too
yeah,
bad, really. Not
yeah. If
much
you
you can
can't
do.
shorten it up and make it into a single speed or something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
you're in trouble for sure. So and I guess it will turn into a 50-mile run
Yeah.
with a bike.
Yeah, ditch the bike. Actually, I was wondering for them, like maybe can you ditch the bike and just run to the finish? I probably you're not allowed to do
Mm.
that, but that would be easier when your bike is broken
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine putting that many miles with running shoes on. I mean, with biking
Bike
shoes
shoes.
on.
Oh. on
That'd
the
be,
on those bowling ball rocks with your bike shoes
yeah,
just
that'd be
clacking
pretty
along.
for sure, for sure.
um, so what did your recovery look like between the 50 bike and the 100 bike, which was I think 5 weeks later, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure it's about 5 weeks between the two.
Good question. I don't remember. I I
Do I need to look it up? Do I need to look it up on Training Peaks?
yeah, no, like I probably missed. I think I was missing a lot of training, but I think I was working a lot and trying to get by, getting things done. I was doing some big rides and yeah, and living. I mean, I have 3 kids and a wife, and I own a company, so the time that I can squeak out for actually training sometimes gets a little limited. But so yeah, I was doing a lot of. I ended up the biking season started for the high school, so I was riding a lot with them,
Mm-hmm.
getting some stuff in there and doing as many runs as I could. But I remember at some point thinking like, wow, I don't remember the last time I ran. Like I was like doing too much biking. I think I was like, oh man, I should probably run at some point. So it's kind of the balance between the two sports is a little tricky. I think for training wise, I think all the years before I've always done it just focused on running and had thought the biking was just in my back pocket. I'll just do the bikes and no big deal. And I never really trained for the bike. And I was just like, I'm good enough on a bike and I'll have enough running training in that I can just get that done. And this was the first year I was really trying to had some goals. I wanted to get that big buckle for the bike, the sub 9. So I was really trying hard to do a little bit more riding. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I came up with a finish at the end, so it all worked out. But I don't know if training wise, if it worked out for the running side. I don't know how much it transfers over doing that much riding for the running. So, but yeah, I'd say I was working a lot and riding and trying to recover and getting some runs in, trying to get some elevation in. So
Full transparency here is that Ryan and I work together. We've been friends for I don't know, like a decade or something, doing these races together. And I see Ryan's Training Peaks account and all his workouts. I might even program them as well.
hey, it's a good chance. Brian also, full transparency, also picks all my races every year. Like as the fall he goes, he's like, Ryan, this is what you're doing this summer. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that race. I don't want to do this 100-mile race. So yeah, you've been a good
we get most of them done.
Into a lot of miserable experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, going into this 100 bike, I know you wanted to come out with a big buckle, and you just kind of spilled the beans that didn't happen necessarily. But there was also some other challenges or other things you were racing, right? You had your how old is Reed? I don't even know how old Reed
He's
is. Is he
18.
18? 18 or
Yeah.
19, yeah.
Hmm.
But you had your son Reed racing the 100 bike. He got in through some charity high school spot or something. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so Reed was finishing up his high school season last year and graduated high school well this spring, and there was an opportunity for him to get a charity spot to raise money for the Colorado High School Mountain Bike League, and he got picked for that, and he decided that was something that he's always talked about doing it, and he didn't get in on the lottery, but this charity popped up, so he was like, he went for it, and he put in a lot of time and a lot of effort for an 18-year-old, especially finishing high school and trying to work a job. And he was, waking up early and doing the hard things. And I was very proud of him to see him over 8 months really put in that time and effort. And he is just stupid fast on a bike. All those high school kids are really fast, and I'm never going to keep up with them ever. But it was a great experience to be able to train with him and watch him go through the process and have this goal since he was, I think he first came to the race in 2016. And I remember him telling me then, he said, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. So it was great to see that full transition for him. And he was actually supposed to do the 50-mile, the Silver Rush with
Mm-hmm.
us. And he ended up crashing early in the season and breaking his hand and getting some stitches in his leg and stuff, and ended up training on a trainer and then rode a road bike with a cast on for multiple weeks, and was able to stick it out, which I was very proud that he was able to overcome all that and still show up on race day. But yeah, it was a little wild because not only was he going to race the 100 with me, or together at the same time, he was also leaving for college.
Hmm.
So we went just after the race. We packed him up to take him to college. So there was a lot of things going on. Him moving out of the house and going to college, and also doing this race, and there was a lot of moving parts to say the least. It was a little, and then I was very heavily focused on him and making sure like he was gonna have the experience and he was gonna have a good day. And every once in a while, I was like, oh yeah, I'm racing too. So it was exciting, and one of the best parts about that day or that weekend too was we had a lot of family and friends come out to support. We had a large group. Both of you guys were there, but there was we had like over 20 friends and family coming down to spectate and support Reed, and I guess me too, and our other buddy Mark who was racing. So it was pretty amazing to get up to the starting line together, even though he was in a different crowd than me, which is a little bit of a bummer. And he started 3 minutes behind me, and we never crossed paths. So, oh no,
Oh.
I crossed paths. I was coming down Columbine, trying to look for him because I knew he was right behind me, and not crash on Columbine. And you know how that's like a two-way traffic thing on
Mm-hmm.
Columbine.
Heck yeah.
So it's a little sketchy. I saw him right there. I didn't see him. He yelled. He's like, "Hey, Dad!" And I was just like, "Whoa!" So yeah, it was a pretty wild weekend. But and as far as that race goes, I think I went out. You go out in these things with like big expectations and dreams. Like I've been mentally preparing for races like this, thinking about how awesome I was going to be, and then very quickly you remember like that you're not as awesome as you planned on during your training ride and run. And I was going out for the sub 9, and I had that pace, and I think I hit like outbound, and I was like, man, I'm just not good at being like a cyclist. Like I'm not good at being in a pace line. I'm not good at drafting. I'm not good at spinning my pedals fast enough. I'm more of a masher, and all these things are coming to my head. Where like, yeah, you're just not you're not very qualified for this type of race. But yeah, I stuck it out. I think I was at mile 35. When I was all zoned out. What was that? Was that mini? What's the eights? Not the the aid station. It's not an official aid station, right before Twin on the dirt
Pipeline?
road there. Yeah, pipe is a mini pipeline or something. And
No, it's
I think it's
Pipeline.
just
We're all the
called
cruise
Pipeline.
park. We're all the cruise
yeah,
park.
yeah, pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like riding on that. It's like a dirt road, kind of flat dirt road, kind of zoned out. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, it just feels like it's taking a lot of effort to pedal, but I'm like focused and I'm like riding the dirt and I'm like, it just must be a little looser than I think. Maybe my tire pressure's down and I got the music on, but I'm like, just stay focused, stay on this pace. And then I hear a guy say, hey man, you're doing really good. And I look over my shoulder and there's about 30 guys drafting off me. I've been pulling for probably 20 minutes. And they're like, you want us to take a turn? I was like, oh man. Yes, please. And then they all passed me, and I couldn't keep up with them, and they all just kept riding. So yeah, that's how good I am as a roadie. Like it was
Yeah.
rough.
The year I did it, we were good at communicating that. Like we would say, okay, like 30-second shift, and then we would just cycle. And then there's always one or two guys that just, when it's their turn, they're like, I'm backing up right in the middle of the peloton. I'm never gonna pull people, which is so frustrating. But hey, you help people. You didn't want to, but
Yeah.
good on
Well,
you.
I always feel like I'm the guy too that like you get in, like someone will be like, let's work together, and then I'll be like, okay, and then like I feel bad after like 15 seconds and like get in front of them, and then like no one ever switches back out, and I'm like end up pulling forever or something like that. Yeah, so, but that was
Yeah, if you don't ride with the peloton like a group of people all the time and you don't get to learn their actions, like it is so hit and miss. There's the guy that jumps on the front and just takes off like 8 miles an hour faster than everyone else was just going. He just starts pulling away and making everyone else work, and the accordion elastic stretches. I mean, there's just so many scenarios. The other guy gets on the front and then just like slows down, starts drinking water because he doesn't know how to be in the front either. Like there's just so many scenarios, and with 2,000 riders at Leadville, it's so hard to like find that perfect person or that group of people that would move just as you would move, right?
Yeah, and I always feel like the mountain bike racing is always versus the running. It feels like a lot of like you feel like you're racing. Like there's a lot of anxiety in there and stress. Like everyone's like going fast and like everything's like let's go. And I'm like, oh, like when are we gonna stop and take photos? There's like no time for that. And I also had I don't know if you guys this happened to you guys too, but with the Leadman bib or whatever on your bike, everyone wants like you get cheered, like people are like way to go Leadman or whatever, which is great. But then I had tons of people come up to me like, hey, so I was thinking about doing that next year, what's that like, or I'm like like I don't know man, come talk to me later. I'm like, I'm trying to breathe. So I had a lot of people like kind of asking me questions and wanting to chat it up, and I was like, I must not be at the right. I think it was right up my 40. I was like, I'm not a sub 9 Leadville guy. I'm gonna back off. So I started toning it back a little bit there.
Which I think is great. I mean, I think it's great to come in with high ambition as like you have your A goal, it's finishing, and maybe your B goal is to get a sub 9 hour. And of course you work toward that goal, but as soon as you realize that, I could push the pace, but if I do, I might blow up and not even finish, and then realizing it's just not in the card and readjusting towards, the second half of the day on how you feel, I think is a skill that not everyone has. And I think that shows strength of character, understanding yourself, understanding the effort ahead of time, and being smart about pacing. So kudos to you for sure.
Yeah, I've had a lot of practice of going to plan B.
And plan C. And, yeah. Well,
just
it's primary goal and secondary goal, right? And yeah.
I mean, and I told Reed, I've said it before about the 100. I said, you go out, but the race doesn't start until you're coming back over the dam. And there's racers coming back over the dam, and there's survivors coming back over the dam.
Yeah.
And usually like the majority of people turn into survivors. And so that was actually my 4th bike finish there for the 100, which is and it was great. I gotta say, like, I definitely had an advantage over my son because I knew what was coming and what was going to happen, and having the that knowledge is a huge help. I think, like been out there numerous times. So
Simon was up on Columbine volunteering
Yep.
For the bike.
And I was
For
looking
the
for you,
bike.
but I didn't. You must have passed, and I didn't recognize you. Or I mean,
Yeah.
you're running in between you. I was filling bottle, where you have the lollipop, and we would pick bottle at the beginning of the lollipop, and I would run after someone. So maybe I missed you like that. But yeah,
yeah, it's hard.
And
It's like
it's so
with the
hard with
helmet and
helmets and
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's you don't. I don't look the
Yeah.
same.
We almost missed
Yeah.
him, and we were his crew, right? So we were crewing for you, but it's funny because, yeah, I got into like 100 ultra crewing mode, like running 100 ultra crewing mode, and I was thinking like, oh, this is gonna be slow. We got a chair, sat down, and all of a sudden, like, it was like the crewing was fast paced. It was like just like
Yeah.
next station, and I was like, whoa, man, can we take a breather here? Like,
Yeah, and we've been, we've done it a few times where we have some of the high school mountain bike kids come out and crew, and then my other son, my middle child Chase, he crewed there, and it's always great to like roll in and have him, like oiling the chain and swapping out bottles, and they really love it. And I had my youngest Oliver, my 9-year-old, I had him. His job was to hand me some candy at on my way back on inbound from Twin, and I'm coming down that last stretch before you cross the road there. I don't know what that highway is, but he's there, and I pull over and put my hand out, and he throws these Sour Patch Kids in. I throw them in my mouth, and I'm chewing them, and it's just like gritty rocks and sand all in it, And I'm like, what is going on with these Sour Patch Kids? Like filled his in. And after the race, he said to me, he's like, Dad, did the candy help? And I was like, oh, it helped so good. Like, that's what got me through it. Thanks, buddy. He goes, well, I was concerned because I dropped it all on the ground. He goes, I picked it up. And he goes, and there was a lot of dirt in there. He goes, I was a little worried it was going to not help.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't notice.
I was like, oh, no, you did a great job. So
that's so funny.
It worked out great for me. But that was another, like, just perfect day weather-wise up in Leadville, too. It was,
You did get a little sprinkle on the backside of Keevan's coming in about mile 80 or something like that, right? You got a little sprinkle on the road section.
Yeah, and it was just the right amount of enough to. I think it actually hit me on a power line, if I remember correctly. But it was just enough to cool you off. I kind of like I run kind of hot, so it was nice to get a little wet and cool down a little bit before that last climb. So on Keevan.
So you were successful. What was your time?
9:50, I think 9:50 is
solid.
9:50.
Congrats.
Yeah.
So I was happy about it. And then the only regret I would have was I was descending poorly on all the descents. I just couldn't hold on to the bars after coming down Columbine. That's such a long descent, and my hands got tired. And I knew Reed was like, every time I get on the aid station, they're like, he's 3 minutes behind you. He's 2 minutes behind you. And I was like, if he catches me before the final off of Keevan's, I'll never keep up with him on the descent. He's so fast. So I was like, I'll just be this carrot and like keep pushing really, really hard and like have him keep chasing me so I can get through those hills, and then he'll catch me and we can ride up, 6th Ave together, and we'll hold hands and cheer, and it'll be like this perfect moment. But he I was like looking for him. He never caught up. And then I'm like, I kind of got to the top. I could see the finish line. And you're like, what do I do? So I like kind of roll down the hill, and I'm like looking back, and I'm like, do I finish? And then I was like, you get all everyone's yelling and screaming. So I went across the finish line, and then and then he came in a couple minutes behind me, and we had our moment on the finish line and hugged him and told him I was so proud of him or whatever. And then he absolutely just, he hit the ground, and that was it for him. he was dead to the world. So there's something to be said about, being a little bit older, like the years of endurance training versus he's only been training for a few years, having that build up for the longer races. He was definitely tired afterwards, and I was moving around, getting ready for the 10K and packing my camper and making dinner and cleaning and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. I think Simon was back by then. We were all at the finish. It was really exciting to see both of you guys finish. I think even your friend Mark finished as well. It was great.
he had a crazy like 5 flats in the last 10 miles or something crazy where he was yelling for people that they had more tubes to give him and asked. I think someone gave him like a pump out of a car, something like that. He had a kind of a crazy story, but he got done. And the other thing that I should mention is the high school coach Larry, the legend
Yeah.
DeWitt. The he was Reed's coach at the high school and a personal coach for him for all these his race seasons in the summer. And he actually came and crewed and kind of ran everything for Reed. So it was really fitting to see him Reed get to do the 4 years with the high school racing so closely with Larry as a coach, and then have Larry there at this Leadville finish. It was a really special moment for all of us to see. So it was a little bit of a tear.
Yeah, Larry got choked up and was all a mess, and
Yeah,
it's an interesting small world because Larry coached me back in the day when I did Leadman. Larry's like a legend in the Leadman world. He won Leadman twice, and
yeah,
he I think he did 5 or 4 of them like in eons ago. But either way, but it was good to see Larry and watch him get all choked up and get really emotional over the whole father son thing. He just loved every second of it. It was great.
yeah. And he's just such a awesome role model and passionate person for endurance sports and for these kids. And he's just been an amazing coach. And the community and the high school mountain bike team that we're so lucky to have has just been amazing for my family and all my kids. And it's just teaches these kids to just dig deep and determination and grit and doing hard things. That's what we need in this world is, kids learning how to do hard things, you know. So and that was yeah, so that was really awesome that all come to a head right there. It was a good way to close it out for sure. So
Nice. But you still had one more race to do that weekend. Besides picking up the camper and making dinner, you had to run the 10K. I think at like 9 a.m. the next day or something, like maybe 11 a.m. Or
yeah, it actually got
maybe they postponed it. Didn't they bump it?
yeah, because it rained. It rained, and I
Oh yeah.
think people didn't do the registration because it was raining out. So everyone like stayed in their cars while it downpoured, and then came out at the last minute to do the packet pickup, and then they couldn't get through the line, so they bumped it back to like 9:30 or something like that. I forget what it was. It
Mm-hmm.
was 10:30. I think it was something like that. They bumped it back
Yeah.
30 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
How'd the
but
10K go? Pretty standard stuff. So the 10K is 5K down from the starting line of the 100-mile run down the boulevard. You turn around a tent or a cone or something in the boulevard, and you run 5K back up to town to the finish line. So you run the first 5K of the 100 and the last 5K of the Trail 100 run.
yeah. I mean, is for me. I mean, people always talk about like how awful that must be for the next day when you're doing the lead man, but I always think it's like kind of nice to get to shake your legs out. Like it kind of gets you, like makes you kind of get some turnover and shake your legs out and get going. But yeah, it went fine, just very standard. You always kind of go easy, and then you're like, oh well, I don't want to run too fast on the way uphill, so I should start running fast on the way downhill. But then you start getting some turnover, and then all of a sudden you get to that turnaround, and you see the guys coming back, and you get kind of excited, and you might start running a little fast. I mean, I wasn't running fast at all. I think I was running like at 9:30 or something like that. But yeah, I started chatting up with some other lead men and just talking about the race and all that kind of stuff. So it went well, and then yeah, got done with that and went on back to the camper and spent some time packing up and loading that thing up and putting it on the car and taking that long drive back to the Front Range. So and then uh, trying to get some recovery, I guess, before. But at the same time, I was also we were packing up because we were getting ready to take Reed to over the Western Slope to Mesa to go start college. So and I had missed days at work, so I was like trying to catch up on work, and so yeah, it was a busy few days before we left.
Yeah, real busy week between the 200s for sure. It sounded like for you driving back and forth across the state from Colorado Springs to Grand Junction.
Yep.
That's I don't even know what that is. Maybe it's 5 hours.
It's 5 hours. Yeah.
Jeez. Leadville being smack dab in the middle of it, roughly. So it's not convenient, but it is what you got to do. That's life. That's the way it goes. it sounded like Reed got off to college and is enjoying himself. And then you showed back up to Leadville on Friday morning for the racer meeting. And then
Yeah,
tell us about the 100.
yeah, it was I you know it went. I'm very happy about the whole day. I think I wouldn't say like I came into it with a mindset of one of the first times just to finish. I was just like, I'm just going to finish this race. I really was focused on mentally being very present the whole race, and kind of like I've caught in a couple of hundreds before where I've DNF'd or just had really bad times where I always blamed it on my mental, like that voice just starts talking, and then you start giving it some space, and all of a sudden it's just these excuses are coming in, and everything starts getting harder and worse. And I just told myself my battle was with that, just making
Mm-hmm.
sure that I was going to be focused and present in the moment of what was going on, and not getting caught up in like missing my pace, or feeling sorry for myself, or like buying into like, oh, my leg hurts, my stomach hurts, my head hurts, type thing. And then before the race, the day before, I felt like really relaxed, which was great. I think the biggest thing sometimes with like Leadville is like that 4 a.m. start. Like you're not really getting any sleep, to be able to fall asleep early enough and like get some type of sleep is always really tricky. We were all staying at Sugarloaf Inn, so we had a big group there. I was running with my same crew that I've had since my first 100 miler in 2016 at Leadville, and so that was always great to have the same group, the same guys, which are an interesting group of three guys that don't run or do ultras, and for some reason I picked them to come help me, and they've learned a lot. None of them, but I guess Benji, he runs. He says the only time he runs is for when he paces me. So other than that, he doesn't run more than like 1 or 2 miles here or there. So we were pretty, it was our fourth time there together, so we pretty much knew the routine. I think I might have been using like I've had in the past, like laminated like pace charts from like 2016. Like these are still good for where the aid stations are. But yeah, it was a great morning. The weather wise, I thought it was really good and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was I made it to the starting line on time. I think what was it last year? I showed up and couldn't find the hole in the fence to get into the corral for the starting line. And then while I was panicking to get in, they started doing the Star Spangled Banner thing. And then like you're like, okay, I'm standing here, and then the gun went off, and I was like still outside in like like the aid station area, and I was like had to run up to the street and come in the back. So at least I was like in the corral when they started this time. I was like, that's a win. And it was like with you, and yeah, we all started together actually, right? Me, you, and
Yep.
Mark, and Simon, and I ended up
Yeah, the
running with
four of us,
Simon.
the three of us, and Mark of Mark and Leanne fame that we talk about
Yeah,
in the podcast. The four of us were standing near each other at the start, and then took off at 4
yeah, and
a.m.
then it was normal when I raced with Simon. I see you at the start, and then I don't see you
That's not
again.
true. We not this time around, but
Out
usually we share
out
some miles.
there's on
Yeah,
the
that's true.
I
That's
see you
true.
on
Yeah,
but yeah, I ended up like
but
hanging out with Mark for a little bit. That worked out good. But like pretty immediately before the start, I was like my hip flexors were like crazy tight, and I was just like my
mm,
quads were tight, and I was just like, oh, maybe I went a little too hard on the bike. And I just had this mentality of like, oh, it's just it'll shake, it'll work out, it'll just work out, just like stick with it, and it'll work out. And I was very relaxed, and I think the four of us were all kind of like, I mean, me and Mark were behind you and Brian, but we kind of all like were moving towards Twin, all about pretty close together. I think within 10 or 15 minutes of each other, or whatever.
yeah.
And
I
then
mean, Leadville is such a fast-paced race that I think first 40 miles, if you're a finisher, you were probably within 30 to 60 minutes of each other, and think
Yeah.
all of us were probably within 15 minutes, I think, at
Yeah.
that time.
And
It
then,
might have been tighter than that, quite honestly. It might have been tighter than that. A
Yeah.
smaller window, I mean, that we were in
Yeah, there's
together.
only Mickey that goes ahead, but that's a whole
yeah.
different story.
And I was actually ahead of Mark coming to Twin, but I
Okay.
stopped at the stream to dunk my head, and then he just took off. So, and I was like, this guy, man, we've been running together this whole time. I keep like, hey, come on. And then he's just like,
He
gonna
was
make,
just waiting for the opportunity, you know? He was
yeah,
like, I'm gonna smoke this guy. I just need the right opening and then bye.
yeah,
So
get into the aid
smart,
station
smart
first.
dude.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that was also awesome. We got in the aid station. We had all our tents were together, so we had a big crew in there, all helping all of us. It was good to see everybody, and um, I, I, uh, I did the thing that they say don't do, which was I bought new shoes and not even like I've worn new shoes to 100 miles before, but I actually bought a new type of shoe,
Yeah.
like which and I
Were
was
these
like,
the normals? Were these the normals?
yeah. So I ran the first 40 miles in the normals, which
Oh,
they,
interesting.
they worked they worked pretty good. I couldn't get the lacing correctly, so they were kind of like I was kind of sliding around the shoe, and I was stopping and fixing the lacing, and I was like, I'm gonna go back to my the mountain runners for the for going up Columbine, not Columbine, going up over Hope, and
Yeah.
so I switched out those shoes. There wasn't too much damage done, but I talked to Mark about it because he's just like, I was like, I got some hot spots and this and that. He's like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I don't know. It's just a 100-mile race. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You're like, it's like not 200 miles. Like, it's a blister here, blister there, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it did not fare well. but yeah. So and then we left Twin. I was like in a really good mood, feeling great. My legs, though, my quads were completely trashed.
I
And
want to I want to pause here for a second before Twin, just as and I want to share an anecdote from last year. So last year you had some struggles,
yeah,
some pretty big struggles. It wound up it wound up in almost debilitating, and you got out of there. You were pasty white. You had to get some medical checkups in short order. You had an iron deficiency that you needed to take care of. But that's the super quick 30-second story of what happened. But the story is that you were coming down into Twin Lakes and you were face down in a puddle trying to drink water where the Mount Elbert mini aid station water drop was. And
yeah,
did you see that
Mm.
puddle this year? Was the puddle there?
yeah. No, I don't know if there's Paul there, but I, I, I remember seeing. So, yeah. On that note, I did collapse and pass out twice before mile 40, which was really weird and really scary. And I did remember the spot where I was like, that's where I like passed out. And I was like, and that was like one of those things like, yeah, it's just scary that like you feel like everything's gonna be fine, and all of a sudden it hit me like you're saying. It was like I was running with you, and then you turned around, I wasn't there anymore, and I like collapsed. But yeah, I saw a couple spots along the trail where I was like, I remember laying face down. I was laying face down in a lot of puddles, trying to drink out of them and trying to figure out what was going on with my life at that point. So I think
I mean,
that's,
last year was hot. Like for people that don't know, last year was really hot. This year was supposed to be hot, but we had cloud cover and wind. But last year was just it was not fun. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
funny.
think
You know, I think you will always remember these spots. By the way, because the spot I crashed on my mountain bike, I cannot help myself. Every time I run by, even if it's stranger next to me, I say, "Hey, this is where I crashed with my bike." I know exactly the slight elevation like that. That was enough for me to crash because I'm terrible. I was like, "This is the spot. This is
yeah.
where I was." Ow! Ow! Ow!
Yeah, you definitely don't forget. I think the best explanation was what Brian said to me when he saw me coming down into Winfield, and you said you looked like you had a brain injury. Like I was walking
Mm.
with my hat was sideways, my eyes were like not open, and I was like stumbling. I couldn't see anything. I had no balance, and I was just like my
You had
whole
like
head was just
zero color. Like I
yeah,
mean,
just
normally
completely white, and I just
yeah,
kept
like
telling myself
pasty, gray, like a
uh,
gray.
yeah, just keep moving, you'll come back to life. But I couldn't see anything. I was like looking at it through like a little tunnel, And I was just like, wow, I don't know what if I had a stroke or I don't know what
Mm.
happened to me, but it was. And you're like, and then you were like yelling to me, and I was just like, is that Brian? Like, what is going on? Yeah, it was a very rough year last year, but yeah, this year went better.
So to bring it back
That's
to
good.
this year, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but to bring it back
Yeah,
to this year, it's like Simon was saying, like to relive that same spot, but be in a way better spot than you were last year, has to be rewarding and kind of like feel a lot better. I mean, just to run by the spot and be like, oh, that's where I was laying,
yeah, that's where I was.
almost dead.
Yeah, that's where I
Yeah,
almost died last year. Yeah, no, it felt way better, and it was a little like weight came off of me of like, okay, we're okay, we can do this year. Like this is going to happen, but yeah, for sure. And I mean, I felt,
so you're at the creek crossing. Yep.
yeah. Oh, and then yeah, we headed out over Hope, and I was with you and Mark, and like I said, my quads are destroyed. I couldn't run downhill, but I could climb just fine. So I went up Hope Pass at a pretty good clip, and then I got to the top of Hope, and I thought, I'm not quite sure why I thought, but I thought, man, it'd be really cool to get a photo with everybody. So I laid on the ground and hung out for Mark to come, and I was like, "Where's Brian?" He's like, "He's back there," and I was like, "Well, let's go get a photo." And then we got to the top of the pass, and he's just like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. I just felt like getting a photo." And then as soon as we went over the top, I was just like, "Oh yeah, I can't run downhill." And then I end up doing like the sidestepping down the steep stuff,
Mm.
and like everybody that I passed going up Hope just like passed me, and I was like, "Well, oh well." What are you gonna do? But yeah, I always kind of take it slow down that descent, anyways, into Winfield because I always feel like that can beat you up pretty good, that steep descent. And there's a lot of race left, so
Yeah.
I kind of took
I
it
think
slow.
for me, the beginning of coming down a Hope Pass is super runnable and I do it no problem. But
Mm-hmm.
eventually it comes to these kind of bouldery thing and then it becomes super steep. And that's where I'm a little more careful. But the segment that always hurt me is the one. So once you've gone down and you turn right on whatever the trail is, it's supposed to be an easy segment. Every time it beats me up. Every year. I'm
Mm.
feeling okay. And all of a sudden I'm not okay anymore. And
Yeah, there's a
it's
lot
what?
of just
It's
up and down, up and down.
yeah, it's rolling hills. It shouldn't be too bad, but the 3 or 4 miles that it takes to actually go to Winfield, it's
Feels
some
like
of the
forever.
worst miles I have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's always and after doing it now, it's actually yeah. Like you kind of I know in my head like don't get too down about it because it's gonna take
Yeah.
it's like a process in there. You know, you gotta it takes a while to get to Winfield. It always feels like you should be there way sooner. I was with a guy who was doing it for his first time, and he's like, "I thought this was supposed to be downhill. Why are we going uphill? Why is this like this? This is taking too long." I was like, "You should stop talking. like
Yeah,
I don't
and
want to think about this."
the worst part is also, and you should stop complaining because as much as I hate those miles, then eventually you come back and you have to climb Hope Pass, and whatever was uphill before is like that was actually flat. Why were you
Yeah,
complaining? That was supposed to be the easy
Yeah,
part.
that was runnable. Yeah, that was
That
yeah,
was
runnable.
if you had the leg. Yeah, runnable, but not. I'm not running. Yeah, yeah. But it's
yeah,
also the segment where you start seeing people, much more people, and then like you see how other people are doing. So for me, that's both rewarding and scary at that part because you kind of have a good sense of oh shit, like I thought I was further ahead of people, and I start seeing kind of the pack already crossing me. I was like, oh man, am I back of the pack already? Like, am I tighter than I realize? So it plays with my mind a little bit and in and out like that. But
yeah. I know. I
yeah.
noticed it when we crossed Simon. You're like Ryan, and I was like, I saw like this concern on your face, like, how are you so like I must be way back. Like if I'm
No,
seeing
I
you.
actually when I saw you, I felt or am I mixing? When I saw you, I was feeling pretty good about it. I was worried about all of you guys all day, by the way. All of you. I was like, I
Appreciate
know
that.
you're behind, and especially Brian because Brian was ahead of everyone before, and then we. When did I pass you, Brian? Just before Twin Lake, I think, right? I can't
Right where
remember.
Ryan was drinking water from a pond
Yeah, I think
or
I
a
passed you
puddle the year
before Twin
before. Yeah,
Lake,
yeah, just
and
Mhm.
before Twin Lakes. Yeah,
you
Yeah.
were walking a segment that was runnable, and I was like, ah, man, like Brian is struggling, and Brian is he. You're not telling us when you're struggling. You're hard to read. So you're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I was like, oh, but you're walking this downhill right now. Like, I know you're not fine. Don't lie to me, Brian. Just make,
Yeah.
like, I want you to finish. So the Twin Lake in and out, the Winfield in and out was when I was gauging people. And Brian was the one I was worried about. I was like, ooh, I think you're okay, but I think you can't slow down. And I don't know how accurate that is, Brian, but I felt you were tied with cutoff from my assessment.
Yeah, we'll get back to Ryan here in a second, but I
Yeah.
did I was probably about 45 minutes ahead of cutoff, basically all the way around the board from
Okay. Not too
Winfield
bad.
all the way home. Yeah, I managed that 45 minutes like right to a T almost. I was 45 minutes ahead at Winfield, maybe a full hour at Winfield. I think I was a full hour at Winfield, but I was
Mm.
45 at Twin, 45 at Outward Bound, 45 at May Queen, and then I finished 40 minutes ahead of cutoff at the finish line.
Yeah, I've seen Brian all these years running together in some bad spots, and I always have faith that he'll do just fine.
Actually,
You
to
can
get
grind it out pretty good.
to get to that point is one of the things that Ryan said actually stuck with me. He's like, man, he's like, you got this. And I was already in my head. I was actually thinking of bailing at mile 45 at the top. I was debating on going forward or backwards at Hopeless Aid Station. My Achilles was just on fire and flared up and angry and pissed off. And I was having trouble climbing. And I was thinking, man, I wasn't sure how it was going to end. And I didn't want to do any permanent damage. I want to run for the rest of
Yeah.
my life, not just one more Leadville.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
So,
mean,
but
you
yeah.
guys were at the top, or at least I think that's my understanding. Mark said that all of you saw each other eventually on Hope, right?
So we crossed the water. I think like almost hand in hand. We all left the aid station right at the same time. The
Okay.
three of us, Mark, Ryan, and I. We hit the bottom of the climb. Ryan was super chipper and telling jokes and just kind of walked away from from Mark and I. And then eventually, halfway up, Mark started pulling away from me as well. And I was having to turn my foot sideways and walk like a hockey
Mm.
skate, like uphill
Yep.
with the arch, using the arch because I couldn't put any weight on my Achilles. And so that's what I was thinking. Like, I don't want this thing to snap at Winfield or do some permanent damage. So that's what I sat at the top of the aid station for about an hour and 10 minutes, just trying to figure out if I could loosen it up, if I should go forward or backwards. I called Katie, my wife, and actually what got me moving to finish this story so we can get back to Ryan is that my 13-year-old daughter who was crewing for me, I wanted her to feel like part of the team and part of the crew team. So I included her in a text thread and I was texting them, hey, I'm sitting up here. I'm just trying to get my calf to relax. I'm not sure if I'm going to move forward or backwards, but my Achilles is just pissed off and flared up. My wife gave me the wife one, like whatever you decide, we love you. My crew guy Adam gave me the bro one. He's like, bro, I'm going to the gas station. We're getting Monster energy drinks, and we're gonna run all the way home tonight. So he gave me the bro message, right? And I didn't think anything of it. And then my daughter sent me a message, and she's like, "Hey, Dad, just move forward. You got this. You're good." And I was like, I got to get up and move forward. So I tried it, and it worked. But it was that. And then Ryan, on the flip side, he's like, "Man, you're one of the toughest guys I know. You can grind it out and get this thing done." And I was like, started to like solidify it in my head because I was dealing like what Ryan was talking about earlier, like those mental struggles. I was like, man, do I just go forward? What do I have to prove? I've got a bunch of finishes already. I could just go home. I could cheer on you guys and maybe help out at the other end of the spectrum. And I was like, and then I started to think, well, shoot, if I'm on this project of trying to finish 10, do I really want to come back 2 more times or should I just get this one done today? So
Yeah.
inevitably I did finish, but
And
Hit
I'm
pause.
curious,
I got
Ryan,
a
within.
computer.
Go ahead, Ryan. Oh, we'll pass it to him. Don't worry.
It all sounds like looking at my computer's like dropping power, like choo 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 choo. I'm like, oh. So I just had to plug it in.
Yeah,
This thing had a little technical difficulty. It's okay.
That's
All
good.
right. Ready to rock? All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So Ryan's words of encouragement really helped me out as well.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ryan. With the seed of darkness that Brian is describing, did you feel it? Because as soon as some negative things pops in your mind, I feel it kind of proliferates. And how are you in your mental space throughout the day, basically? When did you know
I
you were
mean,
finishing?
I you know it was I've been practicing. So 2 years ago, when I DNF'd as a lead man in 2022, and it was probably one of the hardest DNFs I've ever had. And it was, it was one of those things. I was at mile 70 something, and I'm feeling like I'm throwing up, I'm nauseous, and like that voice is going in your head. And Reed was gonna run the last section with me, and I promised Oliver I was gonna run down the finish line with him, and I had all this emotion. And ultimately, I let that voice just really get the best of me, and I dropped at Outward Bound. Um, and I mean, my crew said I looked awful and it was all bad and all this kind of stuff, but I mentally, like, I let it chip away at me until all those excuses started to make sense. Like, what am I trying to prove? And is this dangerous? And I got stuff I got to do this week, and and all that stuff. And it's sneaky. You know what I mean? Like, it starts like to drop the little thing, like, we could be
Yeah.
in a bed right now, and like, you could be, sitting on the, having a drink and like be warm right
Yeah.
now. And this is ridiculous for you to go up that hill. And it's
Yeah.
just pulling those strings, and you start believing it. And I was like, don't let it do it, because I've let it do it before. And sometimes it's like, sometimes it feels almost easy to like, I'll just get in this space for a little bit because it passes time. Like, I'll just like be all boo hooey for a little bit, and I'll just, and then I'll get out of it or whatever. But ever since that DNF, I thought about it every single day, and I said, I don't want to have a break mentally. Is what I don't want. I don't want to have me like just be let that voice get in and get me. So I think, and then everyone said, I think there was one year, I think, Brian, where I was telling you, where I did like the super positive year where I like talked to myself like a third grade teacher. I was like, "You're doing great, buddy. Like, keep it going." And like, I was trying all this other stuff, but yeah, this year was this one year where I was just like, I'm just gonna be in the moment the whole time. And
Mm.
it really, I had like even a one low spot, I think like 5 or 6 hours in, which is always like kind of like a low spot, I think, in hundreds. Like, you get that first 30 miles or whatever in, you're kind of like feeling like, oh, I kind of feel like crap. And I was just like, it hit, and I was just like, well, this is how it goes. Like, sometimes you just feel like crap. And I'm like, it'll pass, it'll be okay. And I was just like, just stay doing what you're doing. We're just moving forward, walking down this trail or running down this trail if we can, and just stay right here. Don't think about the next aid station. Don't think about a cutoff. Don't think about anything but what's right here in front of me. And I just kept putting
Mm.
myself back in that space. And I had really practiced for the last year, just trying to like hone in on that. And yeah, so this race was the first time I was definitely like, I wouldn't say I was like over the top positive or ever like super low. I was kind of always like in this neutral kind of like, this is what it is. It hurts a lot, and we're just gonna keep moving and keep chipping away at it. And nothing really got me down, and nothing really like got me stoked either. I was kind of like, at some points I was actually kind of bored. I was just like, man, I forgot how boring this is. like, just out here by yourself. Like, I was just like down this road that doesn't end. I was just like, man, I'm really bored. Like, I've thought about everything I can think about, and I'm just like, now I'm just bored, you know. And
If it's
but
boring,
yeah,
just start running faster. Then it's gonna become painful. That's pretty
yeah,
simple. Then
yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna puke. Something interesting happening. There's always
yeah,
there's
yeah,
always that.
yeah, yeah.
Boring
Well,
is
that's what I was
good.
like trying not to puke. I was like trying to get my nutrition. That was the other thing I was working a
Yeah.
lot on this race, was having my nutrition be correct. And I've had a lot
Yeah.
of hard times in the past years of, I think, probably undereating, and then undereating for periods of time, and then trying to eat too much.
Mm.
So like coming into an aid station, drinking a bunch of sodas, and then drinking a bunch of food, and then leaving, and all of a sudden you get this like big bloated, stomach, and then you're like, oh, I feel nauseous, and like it's hard to breathe because it's like pushing up on your lungs or whatever. And so this year I was trying to like all like just tell myself like little bites every 15, 30 minutes, just a little bit, a little sip, a little bit. And it seemed to work pretty good for me. I was able to not have the same nutritional issues I've had in the past as far as just being sick, you know, and that's always the worst. I was telling somebody, maybe it was my son or whatever, you know, because they're like, oh, you had a tummy ache, you know, like type thing, like it's like a big deal. I'm like, think about being nauseous for 20 hours straight while running, while your entire body hurts. Like at some point, you're like, I can't take this anymore, you know, like it's just it really wears you out. So
For sure. And both direction, you know, like also if it's coming out up or down, it's just
yeah,
it might not sound too bad to have diarrhea a couple of times, but you know, after 10, 15 time,
Or
it's
17.
right,
17, just a random number. We're not citing any friends that might have had that experience. At which point, by the way, from experience, but not from Leadville. I mean, it's like it's water coming out basically. Although we had the discussion with Brian, is it water or is anyway? Point is, it's not fun. It's really not fun. But it's hard to describe how hard it is for to people that have not lived it. But I think you dealt with everything really smartly. Just focusing on the present, but also not on the despair of the situation. You know,
yeah,
that's definitely the direction I go myself. Because as soon as you open the door to negativity, and I let negativity come, but I don't let it kind of hook on me because otherwise there's gonna be that, and then something else, and then something else, and then all of a sudden you're quickly thinking, look, I've done this race before. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. There's a thunderstorm. It's dangerous now. Why am I doing that? And then that's it. The people drop. You know. So you were great,
yeah.
man.
Right before the race, I heard you know someone say something on it was probably on some Instagram thing or whatever, motivational thing, but it was like
Some TikTok.
Stay
yeah,
hard.
yeah, no, yeah,
Carry the boat.
but it was like to let it in, like let this like the pain and all that stuff just like give it a space, and then once you give it a space, then you can like it'll go away. So I was very much like kind of like what you're saying. I was like, well, this all hurts really bad. That's what it is. Like, here you go. Like, this is what it is. And then I felt like as soon as I gave it a space, and then also came to the point of like, and it's going to go away. You know, it's going to be miserable right now, but it's going to go away. And then it'll be
Hopefully.
miserable again. But like, as soon as like you feel like, I felt like there was like this relief that was like, oh, now I can just go through it, you know? Instead of like trying to, I was always like trying to push it out, you know, like, don't let that misery get you, you know, don't like trying to hold it at bay for so long, and then eventually just like runs you right over. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah, the way I visualize it myself is kind of, I feel like it's sound underwater. Like I hear the pain, but it's a little bit more like brr, brr, brr. Like I know it's around, I know it's coming to me, but it's kind of diluted a little bit. It's not as sharp. You know, it's not like a knife cutting you, but more like a push a little bit, or the sound is just muffled. I can't really understand what people are saying, but I understand people are saying something. And that kind of helps me when it gets really bad, when it's sharp pain, to dilute it, and also to see the difference between, because sometimes the dropping is the right decision. I mean, shit, last year you were passing out. I mean, I think maybe you should have even stopped earlier. It's
uh,
that we do this for fun, right? Like we don't do this for permanent damage, or like risking our life or anything like that. And when it's just not happening, it's not happening. And understanding the difference between, well, I'm being a little bitch right now, or wow, like this is actually dangerous. It's not that easy sometimes. It's really not that easy in the moment to make that distinction.
yeah, I'd say my wife would probably agree with you on that. Last year, I probably should have dropped out and gone directly to the emergency room. Like it was a
Yeah.
very unsafe situation, and she was very upset with me for a long time afterwards. But I like yeah, I had it in my head
She
like
still hasn't talked to me. I'm just teasing.
yeah, yeah, I'm still mad at Brian. I think actually after that year she said I could only hang out with you once a year because after you were trying to do 400s and you ended up doing it, but she's like you go
Brian is a bad kid. He's bad influence on
I'm the
yeah
bad
you.
one time a
influence.
year
Still,
and that's
still the
it.
bad influence.
Yeah, and I was like, but like one time, only one time. This
For what it's worth, I'm not allowed to do the mountain biking anymore. And even though I'm very happy with that, let's just say my wife also has a say on it, and but I'm okay with it. I would not do it because as much as I like racing, I don't like breaking bones, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I do. I mean, I guess the bottom line is I'm not, obviously you can tell from my ultra sign up results. I'm not out here to be a winning athlete. I'm just trying to like work hard and be disciplined at something, and these races does that for me, and it's a good training ground to kind of see mentally like where you are, in the world and your life and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I don't know your ultra sign up by heart, but I know, for example, the 23 season, and like what I would say from a semi-neutral point of view is that I think you're someone who's not scared of big challenges, and big challenges means that sometimes shit you're not gonna finish, but you're willing to put it out there and really try hard. And the first memory I have of you is when we were at Ure last year. Yeah, last year, and you were already saying like, hey, I dropped Ure the year before, sometimes before, on Twin Peaks, and you were describing something that to me felt like, and you're coming back. That's interesting. But you did, right? You did come back, and even though some people could be scared or feel that's not something I'm able to do, or it's just not worth it, you tried again, and I think that really shows courage and perseverance, which is something I respect a lot.
I
It's really
appreciate that.
impressive.
It still didn't work out well for me.
Well,
But
yeah, but I mean, but it is Ure, like Ure
it is
is
your
hardcore.
and I didn't quit at Ure. I got, at the end there, I don't know, a mile is in the 80s or something like that. But I just got like so confused about where I was. I just started walking in circles for a while, and I was just like, what the hell is going on out here? And then I was finally like, I'm out of time. So yeah, I got timed out both
Yeah,
years out there just from exhaustion. But it's Ure is a tough race to like the DNF on cutoffs, because I think that year I was 39 hours in. So it's like I've been out here for almost 2 days, and then they're just like, you didn't make the cutoff, sorry, buddy. And then
yeah,
now the funny story about that year too was I got helped back down to whatever that park is, and I remember sitting there and
Felon
thinking,
Park.
yeah, I was thinking, I don't know where I parked my car. So I ended up sleeping on the bench because I was too worried to like go in any direction, because I was like, I don't know where my car is. So I just like laid on the bench until Pete found me the next day. He's like, what are you doing here still? I was like, I don't know where I parked. He's like, I'll bring you back to your car. I was like, thank you. I was like, I have no clue where I am now. Like, I'm just so lost. I was so mentally just drained. And that race is just, I'll be back there. I got to get that buckle like you guys.
well, and it was last year, right? So like I think you probably had underlying issues that you actually didn't realize at the
Yeah.
time, and you still made it to freaking 80 something, which is it's way more than most people. So yeah, I think you can do it on a good
Yeah.
year for sure.
Yeah, I hope to go back at some point,
Yeah,
because that buckle's
it
sweet now.
It's not on
it's a
my
nice
calendar for next
buckle.
year.
It's
Yeah,
I don't know where it is actually. It's somewhere there.
yeah.
But your story about the car actually reminds me of one. It was Rocky Raccoon. Sorry, it's a tangent, guys. We're gonna come back to the main show very soon. But Rocky Raccoon, I was in a rush to come to the start, and it's a campground. It's huge. It's a big race. I just couldn't find a spot, and I ended up parking, I don't know, 1 or 2 miles out, just going on these random campground route,
Mm-hmm.
and just leaving my car there, going to the start, racing for 24 hours, and then like I have no clue where my car is. Also, it's a rental car, so I have no clue what my car looks like. So I was walking the campground like a penguin because I was pretty messed up, pressing the like unlock button and like trying to see if there's any light that would open for I don't know how long, but I look pathetic. It was not a good show. And the moral of the story is try to remember where you put your car, because you don't want to be looking for it after the race. That's for sure.
That's the truth. You gotta wait for everyone to leave.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's the
Which
last
one is
thing.
the
Yeah.
last car?
It's the last thing you would think of, but you could put a pin on your phone, but it'd be the last thing you would think of to do when you're in the car walking away from it, because you're obviously going to remember where your car is. You're thinking
Yeah.
that you're going to
Well, to
remember
be
where
fair,
it is.
I was really in a rush. Like normally I would
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of take the time to say, okay, like this is loop
Mm-hmm.
C3 of the campground, but I was like, oh shit, like I got to get to the start as soon as possible, and then yeah, it was a mess. But don't do it, kids.
I've
It's
been all
not
over
worth
that
it.
campground too. I know exactly what you're talking about. There are a lot of pocket parking lots, and they're just kind of scattered all over the place.
Yep.
They all look the
Uh,
same, probably.
Ryan, did you have any issues getting home from Twin inbound
Yeah,
after returning back over?
yeah. So we came back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a question.
40 miles. Yeah,
Of course. What a question. Yeah.
yeah. It was tough. No, I came in. My goal is always to not take a headlamp out, and it
Mm.
usually ends in just walking in the dark. Like refusing to take it
But you
out. But
didn't get that lamp though. You still didn't take the
I've
lamp.
never taken a headlamp out. I think there's one time the sun set where I was like still like descending, and I was like, I ain't taking it out. And then like I like found myself in that field, like where the hell? But I decided to do that section without a pacer, just because people always are pacing for me, and I feel like I just felt bad. I didn't want to ask anybody, and I think the last 2 years I had pacers that didn't run at all because I
Mm.
dropped, so they never even got to run. So like they come all the way out. So I was like, I'll just do this section by myself, and I had an experience of just doing some of the sections, other races without pacers, and it went pretty well for me. So I was like, oh, I'll just do this section by myself, and that all worked out. Leaving Twin, I think I think I did like 30 minutes faster than I had in the past. I pushed pretty hard, going towards inbound, outbound, um, and then I got there, and everything's going good. I had my new shoes on that I had never worn ever, and I was trying out some new shoes, and so that was fun. And then I got to outbound, and I saw my crew there, and it was kind of funny because I that was where I dropped 2022. So my buddy Blake was there, and he's like, "What do you need? What do you need?" And I was like, in my head, I was like, "I just pushed really good through the section. I feel really good. I just want to like lay down for a second and like close my eyes and get my head straight." And all of a sudden, I remember hearing him going. I turn around for a minute. He's on the ground. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, get him up. And like, cause like he's thinking like I'm just giving in again. And I'm like, but I had some food, picked up Benji, my pacer, who's paced every 100 mile and some other 50 miles with me. So we have a good history together, and we took off, and I immediately started falling asleep and
Mm.
doing the sleepwalking thing, and which was very interesting because I could still climb really well, but I was like doing this like all over the place, like stumbling around and like couldn't stay focused. And I laid down for a dirt nap for a couple minutes. It was really windy at that time. I don't know if you guys remember. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a blowing wind like crazy. And I was just like, I'm gonna lay right here. And then I got up, and I I did that thing where like you're sleepwalking, but I was going into these dreams where I was like talking in my sleep. So I kept saying stuff, and then Benji was like, "What'd you say?" And I was like, "Oh, never mind, never mind." And then all of a sudden, I did this thing where like I just like I was, oh, I woke up, and I look up, and I was like, "Where are we?" And he's like, "We're on power line." And I started looking at it. I could see like the sky, and I was just like over like the top of the hill. I was like, and I could hear the space camp. I could hear the noise. I was like, "Are we almost at the top? Like this is the top?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, I'm like, I don't remember anything. Like I was like, the last thing I remember was us doing the first steep section. That was the only section I remember. And I was like, I just was sleeping this whole time. And I was like, was I going fast? And he's like, no, you're going so slow. Like, this is like the slowest I've ever seen you go up this hill. And I think
Mm.
I'd gone back and looked. I had passed like 40 people from Twin to outbound. And I think like 45 passed me on power line, like going up. I was
Mm.
like, well, that's awesome. But yeah, and I kind of knew at that point. I was like, I got this. We're doing this. I'm like, I got into that mode where it was like just start moving faster because that means we're gonna get done sooner. And that's kind of rare for me. Normally, I'm like, screw this, I'm just gonna walk, you know.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, let's start moving. And we ran down from there, and I got on the Colorado Trail section. And for me, that section always freaks me out because you can hear the aid station down there at the at Turquoise Lake. You know, you can kind of hear people, and you're going the opposite direction, and then it starts going up. You know, and then you cross the one water crossing, and then you're trying to think like how many water crossings there are. And I've kind of panicked in the past there because you just feel like you're going the wrong way in my head. And then yeah, we popped back out at Turquoise Lake there, whatever that aid station was, May Queen or whatever.
May Queen.
Yeah. And I took like a 5-minute pit stop in a chair, just closed my eyes, and was like, okay, let's go do this. Let's get this done. And then immediately got up and started falling asleep again, walking. So I was thinking, I took a Red Bull and I took a caffeine pill, and I was doing everything to try to wake up. And finally woke up, and we were able to get a little momentum and run that last section pretty good. And then and that was a I've had some history on that section. Brian saved me one year there. I think that was 2019, where I was dead man walking, and he came up behind me and like grabbed me by the shoulder and was just like, "Let's go, we got this. Like, stay with me." And I was very emotionally like, "I'm trying, Brian, I'm trying," as he was like slowly going away. And then somehow I got some momentum and actually caught him, past him, and then and I think he gave up at that point. But I was able to keep moving, and I got to at Sugarloafing. I actually ran into Mark. I finally caught up to Mark, and we started chatting. He was walking at that point, and we were talking and telling some war stories, and he was telling about his experience, and which was great. And then I was like, hey, I think I can get a PR. And I was like, we should start moving faster. And he was just like, I really don't care. And I was like, no, we move faster. We can do this. And he's like, I really do not care. And I was like, well, we could finish together, and we could have like the photo on top of Hope, and we could have a photo at the finish line, and this will really come together nicely. And he just was like, Ron, I care less. Like, about what you're doing. So I was like, okay, after a little while, I was like, I might as well just start running. So, and then I was like, telling Benji, I was like, I think we can get a PR. And he's like, what time do we have to get? I'm like, I don't remember what my time was. I think it's like 20, it's just under 29 hours. So I was like, we just got to go a little bit faster. So yeah, I ended up getting to town, and it was got that PR, and I was super excited, and
Nice.
you guys were all there. And then I decided to take my shoes off, and got very surprised by the amount of blisters and the size of the blisters that I had, which were pretty. You should put that as the thumb pick.
Oh, we could put that. We could put the picture in the show notes.
It looked like I had taken some like honey stingers, and they got like lost in my socks. Like that's how big the blisters were. They were pretty gnarly. And then someone's like, how'd you not know you had these blisters? I was like, well, it's uncomfortable the whole time. Like I was very surprised taking the socks off, what things look like. I was like, oh man. And then so and then I was like it was one of them was between my big toe and my other toe, and which meant I couldn't wear sandals, which I was like, I remember like panicking. I was like, how am I gonna get anywhere without sandals? Like, what am I gonna do for shoes?
You gotta get them slides, them Hoka slides.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm gonna have to go buy some slides or something to like, do something. I was like panicking, and they brought me the first aid tent. Of course, they're just like, yeah, we're not touching those things, man. like,
they healed up or what? Where are you at now with the blisters?
I drained them maybe a day or two later. I drained them just because they were so big, and I couldn't function really, so I drained them.
You're like the elephant man with your feet there with the extra growth.
They look like someone when they lose like a few 100 pounds, like the extra skin just like hanging off the side of my toes, it was pretty gnarly. So, but yeah, now I ran today for the first time, and I didn't notice breaking in those shoes right now, breaking in my new shoes.
Nice. Did you wear those shoes again?
I actually wore them today, and yeah, well, I only wore them because like I was in a rush because uh, to get the kids and get a run in and stuff like that, and I didn't. They were those the shoes were sitting out, and I didn't know where I put my other shoes, so I just like grabbed them real quick. I was like, it'll be fine, it'll work out. And then this is how I do most things in my life. It'll be fine.
Pretty much.
And it usually ends with a problem. So.
Hey Ryan, thanks for sharing. Hey, Leadman is a huge challenge, a huge undertaking, and you got it done this year. Congrats! I did see the pickaxe, and it's an upgrade from the previous pickaxe that we've received. So that's a bonus. Um, a couple thoughts in my head though are you and I have been running, racing, training. We've done birthday runs. I don't know, maybe like a decade. Is it a decade? No, maybe
Yeah,
8 years.
I'll do something like that, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but man, we always have a great time. It's always super fun. I appreciate your friendship. I love to see you do hard things. We ran like 140 of Moab 240 together with our pacers. We've
Yeah.
just had a huge bunch of these things. We did your birthday run. We did a 4-pass loop.
Mm-hmm.
Just like these things that we do. So I appreciate your friendship. I enjoy your company. I'm super happy that you got it done this year. I'm super happy that you bounced back after a tough year last year with some medical challenges that you figured out. Apparently, you figured it out and worked through them this year. So congrats to you, man. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. It's always great suffering with you. So, so yeah, we've had some great times over the years, and I always this community. It's always been great, and say this about Brian real quick. Like he's definitely like a motivator in this ultra community of I think pushing people and bringing people together. And he's talked me into doing so many hard things, which has been really really good for me. So I really appreciate it. And then meet people like you, Simon, and other people has been
Yeah, I
great.
mean, it's been great meeting you. I mean, last year and then this year, and I was really. You're right. The community is really what's driving me to, especially a place like Leadville. We're so happy to see you guys. That's honestly the only reason we're going to Leadville every year. And I mean, I was so happy that we virtually all finished. And of course, none of us had a good day. I guess I had the best day of the whole group, which in a way, I guess I should be happy about that. But to see that everyone made it despite the challenges, and I think we all had our kind of really dark time at some point. I mean, it's even a competition at this point. Like, who was the worst? And I feel Mark maybe was the worst, and especially with his answer, I don't care, dude. I really don't care. I know where he's coming from. I had that feeling before, and it's like, man, if I could just sit down here and stop, I would do it. But he did it. You did it. So congratulations, and I'm glad we got to meet. Really, thanks to Brian. So that's awesome, and really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, I'm excited about the future too. One time a year.
One time, yeah. And you were just back up in Leadville with Chase, and he had a pretty stellar performance at the high school mountain bike as a freshman race up in Leadville. So you were up there like the last 3 weekends in a row.
Yeah, I was up there 3 weekends in a row. Yeah, Chase raced his freshman year at the high school league, which again, the high school. If you guys got kids, anyone listening that's got kids that want to race mountain bikes in high school in Colorado, the Colorado Mountain High School League is amazing. And yeah, we had a great day. He took 12th as a freshman, and then the Air Academy team took first overall for their first race of the
Nice,
season, coming off
nice.
of a sweep last year too. So we're hoping these kids are like some of the toughest kids. These kids train like it would blow your mind how hard these kids ride and train, and they honestly coaches can't keep up with them. You know, we had a few weeks ago. We started giving a walkie-talkie to one of the captains because they get so far away from the best riders, and then the coaches complain because they're like, I'm overtraining trying to keep up with how fast the kids are. Like I can't recover fast enough. So it's very impressive. But yeah, I talked to the lady at Sugarloaf, and I was like, I think if I do this again like next year, I might just get like a residency at Sugarloaf and for the whole summer. So it's like I was like every week I was like, can I just leave my camper here? Like I don't want to drive it back. Like she's like, when you come back? I'm like, next week. So anyway, shout out to them too. They're awesome people over there at Sugarloaf. And
Yep. The Don Seppi, and it's been in his family forever. Sugarloaf is an amazing campground, so go check that out as well. Hey Ryan, thanks for your time. We appreciate you coming on short notice and telling your story, man. Congrats on Leadman again, and obviously I'll catch up to you pretty quickly here, but otherwise, thanks again.
yeah, thanks guys. Great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks.